for lock Saturday, January 25th edition. Do I have a little pep in my step? More so than this morning when I was with Adam? You betcha. It's not just because Fast Eddie's wearing his awesome leather jacket. It's because I broke the seal and said, I'm going to have some Diet Pepsi, baby. I'm having some Diet Pepsi. I was a little slow. Took me a while to get into the show this morning, Eddie, but I said, enough of that. Forget this drinking coffee thing.
Yeah, I mean,
back on the carbs. Carbonation.
I was about to say no carbs for me, but carbonation is not something I can live without. I like Live Before Lock as the title. It makes a nice logo with the LBL. You can do a lot of things with it. It's catchy. You can remember it, but old men drinking diet soda has a ring to it that I think maybe we could get over.
Yeah, we could get sponsors, I'm sure. This is the way to go. Speaking of sponsors, hey, presented to you by FanBites. There's a blast from the past. I've got my FanBites shirt on. I've got my Guinness officially from Ireland.
Now I got to go look for something.
All right. Well, while Eddie's doing that, we're going to talk about, one, welcome everybody. Two, we've got SuperDraft as the sponsor. We'll talk about them, point out a couple fun plays on their site. But a reminder, if you guys have not yet signed up, superdraft.io is their URL, and of course you can get $20 of super cash. That is their site currency if you deposit with your initial deposit up to $100 or more and use the promo code AWESEMO. You will get $20 in super cash available for immediate use into any contest, and they do have single game football. Oh my god, Monster Energy. I think in my life I've had 5 total Red Bulls. I've never had any other energy drink besides Red Bull.
Well, let's see. With my headset, these are going to be interesting, but I'll go through all the vestigial caps I have. Still with tags. These are collector's items. I have about 100. Where were we, Fan? So I can start with your. It's not working with the headset. So I have some FanVice here, and shout out to the real OGs at Fantasy Feud. I have all the dead fossil, basically, baseball caps. Not too far. I try to give them away to kids. They're like, no, I don't really want that. But I try to give them away to children. I'm like, you don't understand. It was really cool. They're like, really? I'm like, no, not really. There was a boat thing that was pretty cool. But after that, just all went downhill.
All right. Chat is really liking your chair. And I will say, shout out to mine. I've got a sweatshirt over it. But let's take that sweatshirt off. I have a Respawn. Who knew? I went to the store to get a comfortable chair, and this was
like the Depot. Same one that develops Apex Legends and various other video
I'm assuming games? Respawn is similar to like your character respawning. I haven't played video games.
Well, yeah, it's also the name of a company that's a tragic existence. Could be ended one way or the other. Yeah, my wife could tell you I'm gonna give you the full thing here. So I very rarely color coordinate, obviously, but besides my living in a basement, pallor and black hair and black jacket, the obviously full white background, the black and white personal computer, I went the extra step today. Bam! Look at those pajama pants. Bam! White and black. Look at that. You can't match like that.
That's what we call accessorized. You got to accessorize. Boomerang. Excellent movie. Eddie Murphy. Halle Berry when she was, she is a beautiful woman still, but when she first came onto the scene, it was a good movie. A long time ago.
No, but right there, I'm like David from Schitt's Creek. Only shades, no colors. Just cover up that bit of yellow. Okay, we're ready to go.
All right. Well, let's talk about what we got. Yes, we're gonna talk basketball. Anthony G. I won't attempt the last name there. You win on that one. But let's hit some of the news and notes here. We've got I had some couple people asking, why is Kyle O'Quinn not in the Osmo projections? This is intentional.
He's in my pool.
I reached out to Alex himself.
He's in my pool.
Yep, and I said, tonight could be the night. It's a four games, 8 players in the pool, and yes, he's only played 3 of the last 16 games.
If there were 8 players, not only would he be in the pool, he'd be in every DraftKings lineup, and you couldn't even play on FanDuel. But you mean 8 teams? You said 8 players in the pool. I'm having some fun with you. I'll just be quiet now.
18. Now I'm over caffeinated now because
I'm catching up. Go ahead.
I've been away from it. But let's hit on some of the news and notes. So Reggie Jackson out on the back-to-back. Now, I don't know if this was a new injury or just they're monitoring him for being out for quite a while, but he's still got that back issue. Andre Drummond
it's soreness plus old injury, not feeling great, but apparently not any new injury was my understanding as of this morning. I haven't checked up on Reggie once we found out he was out.
Okay. Andre Drummond missed the last 2 with lip laceration.
Yes, sir.
By the way, 3 of the last 4 times he has played Brooklyn, once this season, 3 last year. 20-plus rebounds. No DeAndre Jordan. There is Jared Allen. I'm feeling good about Andre Drummond tonight. You've got
off the top of my head, I think I remember 4 in a row, so I'm going to randomly challenge your number there. I'm going to go right out on top of my head that one. I'm fairly certain I recall 4 times in a row.
Okay, go.
I don't know. Someone can look that one up. Go ahead. We're taking too much time.
The last game of last season, he did not. I think it was 8, but I could be wrong.
That might be possible, but then I don't think Jared Allen played.
May not have been. I only looked for 2 seasons, but hey, tasty matchup here for the rebound leader of the association. Bruce Brown in tonight. We've got, as I mentioned, DeAndre Jordan out. Tony Snell out for a second game. You've got Nick Claxton. No relation to Speedy Claxton. I double-checked that. Was Speedy Claxton in the pros, or was he just a college player? I forget now. Oh, I'm thinking of Squeaky Williams. Speedy Claxton was in the pros.
Right. I was okay. Now we're
I think Golden State. I feel was a Speedy Claxton.
I don't know if it's possible for us to be any more on topic, but have some fun with it. Don't stick to the script so much. Don't be so businesslike.
Yes. Well, we're collecting people. We're collecting people, and then I'll turn it over to you, of course. But we've got Nerlens Noel out. We're still waiting on Steven Adams, who's been dealing with a sore ankle. Who said he looked good in practice and in warmups, but he didn't play last night. This is a back-to-back. Regardless of that, Karl Anthony Towns has sort of had his way in the last 2 games where he and Adams have squared off. If you go back games 3, 4, 5, 6, a little tougher there. But I do like this one.
I'm going to challenge you again. I think it's 3 times in a row he was good against him. Or I'm skipping. This one I'm going to look up. Go ahead, because I seem to recall Towns doing very well against him several times in a row. Hold on. This one I actually had.
If you're not a guard and you're on OKC, you're probably injured or out tonight. So Terrence Ferguson, Danilo Gallinari, Nerlens Noel, Abdul Nader, and then of course Andre Roberson, who's been out for like 6 years at this point. They're all out. Again, still waiting on Steven Adams news.
Last 3 games for Karl Anthony Towns against Steven Adams: 38-5, 2-2. That was the last game, so I know you're counting that. 35-7, 2-1. That was 2 games ago, and 3 games ago, 41-14. So no.
Okay, 3 games.
3 times.
3 games.
Not that. Before that, there was a stretch of it being more difficult, and that has to do more with the fact that he was actually at times there guarding the 4s because it was a systemic change. But it's a fine spot for him either way. It's obviously a great spot if you don't have Steven Adams there, and he's going to get 35 minutes of the Moose.
Kyle Kuzma, ankle, should play. We don't know about Anthony Davis, bruised ass, but this is the late night hammer at 8:30. It's also the nationally televised game.
That's late night for you, I know. So, yeah.
Well, that's why I'm drinking the soda. I didn't make it past the first quarter of last night's 10:30 game, and I really wanted to. 9.5 hours of sleep, according to my Fitbit. I'd like to watch this one, so I'm having a soda after 2 o'clock. Normally, I don't.
After 9.5 hours of sleep, we're having to caffeinate. Never mind. Just go. Like that is somewhat sedentary. But go ahead.
Yeah, we like nap time around here, so no naps today. But wrapping it up, Chandler Hutchison should be playing. What was his little deal? Dealing with a sore shoulder. Tomas Satoransky is in. Obviously, Lauri Markkanen and Wendell Carter Jr. out.
And Dan Gafford.
And then JaVale McGee is the other guy. Flu. We're waiting to see what happens there. But
very true.
If you were starting a lineup on any site with 1 player, would it be Karl Anthony Towns? Would it be Andre Drummond? Or would it be the Deuce? Thaddeus Young in his 13th season.
Yeah, it would be none of those. The guy I like more relative to ownership in the field tonight than anyone else is Bruce Brown. People are going to love that one. So Bruce Brown has been ill. And previous to that, due to the superfluity of healthy guards on that team and them trying to emerge with Zvi Mikhailuk, spelling still to be determined if I got that one right in chat before. he had been playing tons and tons of minutes, and that number has come down recently. But tonight you have obviously no Luke Kennard, no Blake Griffin, which has been the case for a while. We now have no Reggie Jackson as well, and we still have no Tony Snell. I have him for 32 minutes. He is 3,900. The matchup is about as good as it's going to get for him. I like Bruce Brown a lot. I have him projected for like 28 fantasy points, as opposed to some of these other horrible guards we're talking about as potential value options, a la Langston Galloway. There's a few other guys. Bruce Brown is a pretty decent. I should look this one up, but he's a pretty decent fantasy contributor. 0.8, 0.9 maybe fantasy points per minute. He actually contributes in lots of ways, and the matchup with Brooklyn is one I like a lot for him. You have, bonus backside crap like, Derrick Rose isn't so fresh on a back-to-back, though we've seen no evidence of that this year, but the minutes come down a little bit, whereas previously this year he'd been getting, 28 or something like that on both ends of a back-to-back. I don't know if that necessarily keeps up with 33 on both ends of a back-to-back, but I haven't projected as well or better than a lot of the other chalky value and in his range. Obviously, it's not projected better than, say, Thad or something like that. But I like him a lot. It's going to come down to a minutes issue. I've got a couple Google alerts set up where hopefully I get some news and can confirm this. But I think he starts. I think he plays 30 minutes. I think the matchup doesn't get a lot better. And he's, Jan
$85 for those sunglasses.
All right, your sunglasses are killing me here. I'm trying to. Oh, Amber Vision. That's what they were called. Amber Vision.
That is not point effect, but these are.
No, those look more like.
Somebody got me these because, I'm old and I spend my life in front of a computer, so it's one of those. The glare. Well, this will be the second time I've ever worn them, but since we were doing costuming, I figured I'd go full Tony Stark.
All right, well, I'm dropping the link to the Amber Vision commercial in chat. Anybody that's my age, you're going to get a good chuckle out of that, which is probably 1% of our audience.
I was about to say, those 2 people out of the 3,000 watching are sure grateful for you to.
Oh, indeed. All
What's funny is you don't have me by that much, right? You're 47?
48.
You're 48, yeah. So you have me about 5 years.
48. By the way, I am not the oldest DFS tout, even though I am your old pal.
Oh, Emac. I know. If there's a couple of these.
There are a few, and they don't talk about their age. I've embraced it from day one, and as chat likes to say, both on YouTube and in Slack, I have the gradient goatee that goes from nice dark mustache. And you know what? When I started doing DFS content back, wait for it, in January of 2012. This is year 8. I had my goatee was much more like Eddie's than it is now.
I'm not going to lie. This is not the full natural color of my goatee. I have never dyed my hair, but my goatee gets weird skunk stripes. It just looks weird as hell, and I cannot handle it. So this, and you'll tell if you watch the show for a while, you'll see it be black. And this is way more time than we should have spent talking about facial hair and stuff. So I'm going to go get something basketball again. I'm going to take another trip. Talk about something relevant.
All right. Well, let's do that. While you're doing that, I want to talk about SuperDraft here real quick. They are the sponsor of the show. And once Eddie gets back, I'm turning him loose. You guys don't have to worry about that. You're going to get 44 minutes of nonstop Eddie. So what we have here is superdraft.io is the new site. What is different about them? Well, they do not have salary caps because there are no salaries. We use multipliers instead. This is a lot of fun. So someone like Karl Anthony Towns tonight has a 1 multiplier, meaning his fantasy points are his fantasy points. We get some other people that have 1.2 tonight. Thaddeus Young is 1.75. So whatever he gets, you multiply it by 1.75. It's fantastic. If you have not yet signed up, use the promo code OSMO when you make your first deposit. If you put in $100, they will give you $20 of super cash, which is their site cash and available for immediate use into any contest. If you don't use the promo code OSMO and you put in $100, you get $10. So use the promo code OSMO. All you got to do, type it out, just a couple characters there, and you get an extra $10. But it's a lot of fun over there. They have single game contests for NFL, so they do have Super Bowl contests already posted, and their goal is to have a little bit of overlay. So we've been trying to help them grow the size of their NBA contests. I think they had a $15,000 or $16,000 contest midweek. I think it's 10 tonight, but check it out. Definitely a lot of fun over there. And Adam and Josh Engelman are working on their models. I think I'm going to try and instigate a challenge between them to see who wins the first ever SuperDraft Osmo Tout GPP. So we'll see here. Okay. But Eddie, take us from the top. I've talked way more than enough. Let's start off with our first game, Brooklyn at Detroit. We have the highest. Let's say that one more time. We have the highest over-under of the night at just shy of 230. The other thing that is kind of interesting about this, it's not Detroit that's the defensive team. It's Brooklyn. And Spencer Dinwiddie apparently coming off the bench. Someone just tagged me
Correct.
in chat.
Yeah.
Is
Garrett Temple? Garrett Temple will start.
Okay, so LeVert and Dinwiddie are coming off the bench.
Yep.
This is a rotation we have not seen. You are someone that watches a ton. Let me rephrase that. This is a starting lineup we have not really seen. It's a rotation that that potentially has occurred. What has your soothsaying found for you today that you would like to share with everybody else with regards to the Brooklyn Nets?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of a lot of guys on both of these teams. I think Kyrie is a very good starting point. This is a particularly brilliant matchup. One of the reasons I like Bruce Brown that I didn't fully get into, there's a lot of reasons to like Bruce Brown, but yet another one is that they will stick him on Kyrie and he's going to have a fair bit of responsibility in managing that. When they played earlier this year, they matched minutes. I remember them particularly bringing him off the bench for that defensive assignment. Hold on, let me download a box. I could be completely wrong here, but that's my recollection. This game, it was like second week of the year, so got to go back a bit. Here we go. Started and played 40 minutes in that game, which I presume is probably his career high in minutes. That was a regulation game. So I think, especially with the various other injuries to that team, not having even Tony Snell out there, who doesn't do a lot on fantasy or the offensive end of the court, but is one of the better defenders on the team. I really think there could be a minute ceiling there. So I'm not just talking out of my butt there. I do think there's a good chance that you get well into the 30s in minutes for Bruce Brown here. Again, I'd like some sort of confirmation, but any kind of confirmation is going to hurt the 10-12% ownership we're sitting on right now. So yeah, I'm a pretty big fan of that. So yeah, you now are looking at now that said, Bruce Brown is not an all-world defender, and they're going to have a lot of trouble containing Kyrie Irving here. Changing Spencer Dinwiddie into Garrett Temple should enhance an already fairly massive usage. He has not been operating at the usage he's had for a lot of the year, where he was closer to the mid-30s. It's been a little lower recently. That has something to do with the return of other personnel being out there, mostly with a fully healthy Caris LeVert. That should knock it down a couple points, but not as low as it has fallen. And I do think there is some space for a pretty massive ceiling from him. So I'm a pretty big fan of Kyrie. I suspect I would want more than we have right now. Let me scroll all the way up to the top here. Yeah, I don't see his name in the first 10. Oh, there he is down there. We have him a little bit over 20%. I would prioritize him a little more than that. And moving Garrett Temple into the starting lineup, it's just there have been a number of games, and we talked about this a couple months ago for those who were around at the beginning of the year, where he just can do his thing and call his own number, and there's not a lot that's going to stop him in this matchup from doing that. So pretty big fan there. In the spend ups, I have him behind Drummond from a points per dollar standpoint, but ahead of LeBron, ahead of Simmons, ahead of Towns by a little ahead of her. So I'm fairly high on Kyrie Irving. I would have a little bit more there. Jared Allen, now only 1 for 2 on my will play the most minutes of his career. Would have got there last game. I said, I think he'll play the most regulation minutes of his career. I think he'll get 37. And then they ended up down 20. So they pulled him out with, I think, 6.5 minutes to go. He would have played exactly 37 minutes. It would have had it to the minute, but they decided to go with super small 3-pointy team in an attempt to catch up. Spoiler alert, they did not catch up. But that was Jared Allen in a good match, or in a horrible matchup, rather, which we saw in the result. I was a big fan of Jared Allen in that Laker game, and we'll get to a similar situation later tonight with the Lakers, talking about a couple other players. But, with no Claxton and no DeAndre Jordan, 36, 37, 38 minutes, I think is a real possibility. With Claxton and not DeAndre Jordan, I think more often than not, that number is going to land 31. I think I am projected for 31. Might see 30, might see 32, might get foul trouble or something like that. It is not a matchup I'm confident in. I'll put it that way, because while Allen's production is generally very well tied to, he generally does very well against players in the ilk of Drummond, Valanciunas, Whiteside, guys where he can hang out by the basket, not have to worry about getting pulled away. A lot of his points come from rebounds and blocks, and obviously closer you are to the basket, more you're going to get those. He has really struggled with Andre Drummond, who in many aspects, with the exception of maybe shot blocking, is just sort of a bigger, stronger Jared Allen in a lot of ways. Still, overall, big fan of the package. Can certainly get there. I imagine after his disappointment, his ownership will have fallen further than it should at around a $6K price tag. Obviously, a matchup with Drummond, the Nets also going to want to deploy him as much as possible. So I don't even see. Yeah, he's come all the way down to 13%. That's well too low. So I would like to get to some more of that, certainly. Other guys in this game, sorry, disorganized notes again. One of these days I'll take the time to clean them up and get them around. Joe Harris, shout out on FanDuel, tough position, $3,900. I'm fine getting there. Spencer Dinwiddie, I like a lot on FanDuel at $6,400. I'd rather play Bruce Brown, who's also a shooting guard. But $7,200 on DraftKings, the lack of the positional niche you're fitting, I'm just fine with it. I think there's a real upside. I think it is an upgrade for him to be moved out of the starting lineup. I don't expect the minutes to be severely limited. It did knock my projection for him by 2, but it's still
2 minutes or 2 fantasy points?
2 minutes. It raised my fantasy point projection by a half point. So it's a minor cookie, but it certainly wouldn't exclude him for me. I think he's fine to play on DK. And again, on a short slate, it's fun to make some moves against ownership, specifically in his ownership, much like Allen will fall further than it should for similar news. I like Karis LeVert more tonight than I did in that Laker game where I know he was fairly popular with a lot of people. This is simply a vastly better matchup, and it's just a price play wherever you're playing him at this point. He should cost, even in his current role, $5,500 or something. So getting him under $5,000, very similar to Jared Allen. The spot is just fine. I think the minutes will be higher than they were in that last game. I heard other people saying they thought 28 would stick. I thought that was more of an artifact of the Kyrie situation. That 25, 26 was a good projection. He ended up with only, I think, 23 in the Laker game. I'm at 26 again tonight. I'm just fine to get there. Taurean Prince, if he fits in, I'm fine to get there. No kind of priority for me. Garrett Temple now, this raises his minutes projection for me from, I think I had 19 to 24. That's, reasonable to get to at a 4K price tag and a good matchup on a short slate. We have seen a couple 25 real point games out of Garrett Temple this year. Again, not someone I'm prioritizing, but certainly people you can put in your pool. And Speedy Claxton, as apparently we're now going to call him, 3,300 is someone I would have some exposure to. Last couple games, actually, I think he's been fairly productive in limited time. And it is not difficult to imagine a universe, as apparently is one of my lines, in which you get Jared Allen getting in some foul trouble against DeAndre Jordan or whomever, and all of a sudden you get 25 minutes out of Nicholas Claxton. So these last 2 games are not representative of what I would expect about him in general, but 17 minutes, 24 fantasy points, 19 minutes, 29 fantasy points. That's very productive time. Now, I would expect him to normalize at or slightly below under a fantasy point a minute. But even if you think, 15 minutes, 15 fantasy points doesn't kill you at $3,300, and there is some sort of upside there. Though to get it, I do think you need to hope for some sort of foul trouble blowout weirdness for him to necessarily get there. And if you look at his production earlier this year, I'm fairly certain it's more in line with those numbers. Other guys I have comments on from this game. So Detroit, I will not give Bruce Brown an unnecessary additional shout out. I would much rather get there than Langston Galloway. Much rather get there than Langston Galloway, who I think is also going to be more popular and is Langston Galloway. And I will guess the fantasy points per minute for those 2 guys at 0.65 and 0.85. So I do have Langston Galloway projected for 3 more minutes, but that does not make up for the production. Again, yesterday in their last game, we had Reggie Jackson in, who is now out. So in that game we had, trying to think who was out in the last Pistons game. Maybe I'm confused here.
Drummond was out. Brown.
Brown was out. That's what it is. That's what it is. Brown's back.
Yeah.
Rose is out.
Yeah.
Or Jackson's out.
Jackson's out. Rose
Brown's
is
back. Jackson's out. That's the transition. So there are a couple minutes net lost there. I think Reggie played 23 in that game, and has looked really good in both the games since he's returned. But you're netting again a lot of extra minutes, and Langston Galloway is the opposite of Rondé, Hollis Jefferson, or a number of other guys who constantly get fewer minutes than they would logically get in a situation all the time. Langston Galloway is like, whoa, 39 minutes for him. I guess that's one way you could go. So I think you can safely still project him for well north of 30 minutes, again, with no Snell, no Reggie, no Kennard, no Blake, et cetera, et cetera. So, past that, I have any other Pistons notes, or we are ready to quite possibly move on here. You can take a shot on Markieff, not a priority for me. Again, it's getting a little muddy down there with Drummond back. Everyone gets a little ruined. To specifically quantify Drummond, I have him. Hold on, I want to make sure I get this exactly right. I have Drummond 1 point higher than Towns. So on DraftKings, I can't math that. If someone's like, play Towns over Drummond, I think it's fine to play Towns over Drummond. Again, I think Towns outscores Drummond very nearly half the time, basically half the time. It's just extra money. But this is going to come down to an ownership question. Right now, I imagine we have Drummond top couple guys on the slate. Let me take a look. Number 1. That's very appropriate in a brilliant matchup. And as you mentioned, I think it's 4, but you said it's 3. But some number of times in a row, Andre, it's regardless who cares about the game logs, it's a spot in which you would project him for somewhere around like 21 and 18 and like 53 fantasy points is where I think I had him. It's very, very difficult to get away from. So FanDuel, much more get away fromable. DraftKings at $9,100. We have him just under half owned. That's about right. That's a lot of money that's a lot of ownership for a guy with that kind of expenditure, with a lot of other guys who carry similar upside with Braun and Towns and Kyrie and Simmons. And there's a lot of other guys who can get there. So 50% might be a bit high, but it's not unreasonably so. 9,100 is legitimately $1,000 discount, in a brilliant matchup. We have a couple of the best center spots you can get here. Honestly, if you give me 5 teams to play center against in the NBA right now, especially for mostly traditional centers that we're dealing with tonight, we have Brooklyn, which is great. We have Detroit, which has been scandalously horrible defensively at center for a number of times now. We have the Bulls. So there's some great center matchups. So,
all right, you win. You're right. It was the last 4 games against Brooklyn. 20 rebounds in each game. My apologies.
Any day I watch the games, whatever, I keep notes in my tag. So I simply have plus signs in this Microsoft Access database I have, by the way. Not Excel, Access. I'm old school. So anyway.
Let's throw this out. This is against Jared Allen, and I did confirm that it was Allen and Drummond have both been in the last 4 games.
Completely irrelevant, but okay.
20, 20, 23, 20, 14, 27, 13, 20. That's rebounds. That's not points. That's rebounds. Yeah. Amazing.
Yeah. And now I don't want to do the whole game log thing. In 2 of those games, I think Jared Allen only played the teens in minutes. You have the one earlier this year where DeAndre got the start, which didn't help, and won the second one of last year, if I'm remembering correctly. But it's not always, but it doesn't matter. It's a brilliant spot, and there's only Jared Allen there now, and whatever. But it's $9,100 is whatever. On FanDuel, it would be an ownership question for me, but again, I have him basically tied with Towns. Way too many game logs talked about on today's show, but fun. I like.
Well, you know what? If anybody's going to have an eidetic memory, it is going to be you. There you go.
Terrible.
Let's move on. Did I pronounce it correctly at least?
Yeah, eidetic is correct. There's no actual ed in eidetic. It's EID, but
yeah, there we go. All right, so let's move on to the next game here because chat's getting a little bit antsy.
They should. It's 6:30. Let's go.
All right, let's hit it. We've got so let's do the quicker game. Chicago at Cleveland. Tristan Thompson, I don't know, in a little bit of a funk. Seems odd. This is an island game, so we should see full Kevin Love. On the other side, Chicago, no big man. We're looking at Thaddeus Young here. I think Chandler Hutchison is reasonable. I don't like Kobe White. Feel he's a little too points dependent. What do you want to do with this battle of the Midwest?
Right. So lots of players in this game are viable, especially on a 4-game slate. So internally, the Cavs have, and it sounds ridiculous, but have finally sort of given up the ghost on making a playoff push, which sounds crazy since they are 12-32, give or take a game. But the team that gets the 8th seed in the East is going to be 38-44 or something. So for a while, it wasn't that crazy, but you're hearing about it with the more ramping up of talks. And one of the things we've seen more of is a bigger presence for Larry Nance. I completely screwed the pooch on Larry Nance on my Thursday show by saying I would have played none. Now, I made 2 mistakes. One was I didn't differentiate between FanDuel and DraftKings. FanDuel dude was $4,200. DK was $5,100, which, $700 from the floor and $2,100 from the floor are a massive difference. I should have made that difference clear. And second of all, on a slate of that size, that's just the wrong take because it's a matchup in which he is a guy who can put together a giant upside. So yeah, that was just wrong. And several people were like, that was wrong. And you were right. And I was wrong. So, but I presumed what would happen in that last game is that the greater minutes Nance had seen leading into that game, which were, I want to say 24-28 over the preceding 3, had come largely due to the absence of John Henson and an absence of bodies. So he was filling in some time there. And then Henson came back. And even if, Nance, I expected to go back to just backing up Kevin Love, which had been his role most of the year. And I thought John Henson would back up Tristan Thompson. And so I figured he'd get whatever, 12, 14, 16 minutes, whatever Kevin Love didn't play, maybe get some center time, but not enough that I thought I would significantly regret it. And he got 28 minutes and had one of his best games of the year and was, he was hyper efficient. He not only got more time than I expected, he was well more productive than I would have guessed, even if he got that many minutes. If you went back and looked at the earlier game this year against the Wizards, I think he played 21 minutes in that and made a shot and had like 14 fantasy points. So a lot of things broke the wrong way, but this is a long way around to saying the front court isn't as secure as it would have been a while ago. Tristan Thompson, someone said to me in the chat a while ago that it hasn't had a good game in a while. 2 games ago, he had 40-something fantasy points.
Yeah, and by the way, like 6 games ago, he's coming off his best stretch of the season.
Yeah, and included in that best stretch of the season was a game against the Bulls, who he's playing tonight, where it was 7 days ago?
Oh, that was, what have you done for me lately, Eddie? Come on.
So, setting aside the game against the Pistons, by the way, which was in that streak, which was the best game of his career, where he had 60 whatever the hell fantasy points and he played the Bulls. Double check me on this, but they played the Bulls, I'm positive, a week ago, give or take a day. So 6 to 8 days ago, they played the Bulls, and he had 23 and 10 and 40 some odd fantasy points. So large point being here, same recency bias, Garrett Allen. I imagine Tristan Thompson goes a little under-owned relative to where he should be. There is a very big upside for that price. But we've seen more minutes for Nance, not just backing up Love, also just raw dog taking time from Tristan Thompson. And this isn't purely Nance good, Thompson bad either. This is a team that is developing assets and looking to make trades and making I don't think this is a short-term thing. I think there is long-term uncertainty in the position. So that would change a week ago, Tristan Thompson at this price being probably my favorite play on the slate, to me thinking he's probably an under-owned GPP play with very significant upside. He ranks very similar to Larry Nance. I looked a few hours ago, the one time I looked at our ownership, and we had Thompson with higher ownership than Nance. He's also X dollars more. I think he's a little more likely to get there. They rank very similarly for me as players today. Bigs are a tough spot today. A lot of guys are, you have several guys who are very good who are power forward only on DraftKings. I believe Darius Paisley, Kevin Love, and Thad Young are all power forward only. Now you can still play them all, but this is the closest it would be like if DraftKings was a real fantasy site that had positions for players, because you can't play any more power forwards after that. But there are positional issues. If you played those 3 guys, and I really like those 3 guys, you are closing yourself off to a number of positional options. So there could be, just a rare occurrence. There could be positional issues here. This is a brilliant spot for Zach LaVine. FanDuel, absolutely love. DraftKings, love slightly less, but at $9,200, I'm going back and forth with him and Kyrie. I had it as Levine coming into the show. Temple starting instead of LeVert moves that enough for me that I have them at their prices really, really, really similar. 8,600 Levine on FanDuel is a big fan. Had a big 65 fantasy point game against the Cavs earlier this year. This is the third time they've played this year. Would not be shocked to see something like that again. You can play Luke Cornett as sort of your elite tagged young pivot. I don't know if we have a starting lineup yet. If we do, someone should tell that.
I don't think we do, but shout out to the 2,700 people that are in watching the show right now. I think that is a new Saturday.
Kuzma in, Rondo in, Kuzma in, Rondo in, Brow in.
JaVale out.
JaVale out. Bruce Brown is starting. Let's go!
22 minutes, baby. Let's go, Bruce Brown. Come on.
Okay. Sorry, I got a little excited there.
Have you seen Brown Fighting with My Family? An excellent wrestling movie.
It really is. I'm ready to vote for The Rock for president. Sekou getting the start at the 4 again. The brief recessive in what he was doing was he was late to a shoot around, I believe, so he actually got benched disciplinarily. Sekou, he's back starting as he should be. Bulls will start Cornette at center, Young at the 4. That's what I expected, but he'll get some time at the 5. So other guys from this game must go faster. It's our fault. No having fun. I like Kobe White quite a bit, actually. If I have to play Kobe White, he hasn't done his blow-up thing in a while. He may play 16 minutes and have 11 fantasy points. Would not shock me whatsoever. He's the furthest thing from a cash play. I ranked him as a D and a B, which means don't do this in cash. And B means, yeah, I'm fine. Get some of that. He's 39 of FanDuel, 42 DK. That's a fine price for a guy who, in a brilliant matchup, you could definitely see a blowout. Like, he can drop 35 against the Cavs.
Yeah, he's so scoring dependent, though.
Yeah. So yes, he is very scoring dependent, but DK especially, where you get something from 3-pointers. But yeah, there's lots of scoring dependent guys who've managed to get decent. So I do agree that limits his upside, but I'm just saying, yeah, Kobe White has 1 GPPs for people, I believe 2 days this year. It might be a third. So I'll stipulate that it's not impossible he could do it again, and you're not going to get a ton of a better spot than one of your main offensive weapons in Lauri Markkanen out against the Cavs. So I think he should be about 10% owned. That's where we have him projected. Then all good. Chris Dunn, sure. Much rather FanDuel at price and scoring because he can get 7 steals for you against this Cavs team. And Cavs had the Bulls had somewhere to the order of 18 steals against them earlier this year. There was a game where you had like Dunn with 2 and Levine with 5 and a number of other ones. And some great hands guys on this team. You have Thad Young, Chris Dunn, Tomas Satoransky. These are all great steals guys. They all deserve an extra noticeability on FanDuel for the ability to really power up on that stat. I like that a lot. He projects just fine. I will look at our boom bust tool as soon as I get a second, but obviously we are behind, but I want to contextualize those comments a little bit. But if we haven't projected at like 40% ownership, that's a little higher than I would like to be.
We just got an update here. It is refreshing. We have Thad Young on DK at 57. He is that's 55 absurd. On FanDuel, and he is 68 on Yahoo.
Yeah, that's too much. 40 is about right. 35 would probably be about my preference for the like. There is literally a correct point where if this is what guys are projected for, and this is their degree of variance and their standard deviation, they should be owned this much to ideally attack the field. And above that, it's smart to move away. I don't know exactly what the number is on Thad Young, but it's less than 57. So find a pivot. That's too much. We also have Darius Paisley second at 55.5. That's too much as well. I like him a lot. He's your best play 3,100 or less, but you don't have to play someone 3,100 or less. Skipping ahead to that game, Gallinari is out. Obviously, that opens some usage, but more importantly, some minutes. Gallinari has missed stretches of games a few times this year. The last one, I believe, Paisley started and played 28 minutes. That's what I projected him for tonight, regardless. Look at this Bruce Brown ownership. What is this? Horse caca. We have him number 4th on ownership now. Why did everyone get on my train? I thought I was driving the Bruce Brown train. Now I'm like, because I really like the guy at 13%. I'm still fine getting there, but now we have him at 37%. I'm thoroughly nonplussed. We also have Josh Okogie at 34%, feel free not to do that. I'm aware he just had a good game. You give me a long enough, I'll have a good game. But 2 in a row is really unlikely. And Josh Okogie, not good at the fantasy. So that's wrong. That's wrong. Moving on. Save some time. Let's go on to the next game.
All right. So we got Jesus. We're horrible.
We're horrible. That's not nice.
We've got 17 minutes.
Okay, I'm just gonna turbo and stop.
Yeah, turbo OKC Minnesota, and then by the way,
all right, you can play. Yeah, you can play Cristiano Felicio on either site. This is a matchup in which they could use some exercise against the Cavs, who are really quite big. So I think the likelihood actually is that he gets more time than Cornette here. Again, Cornette's just fine to play in what's also an obvious Thad Young pivot. But either of those guys sort of as pivots, neither first ins for me. Would probably rather Cornette, even though I project Felicio for more minutes. His role in the offense tends to be incredibly nominal. Nance, fine. Thompson, I guess I like Thompson more than Nance. I think it's a little more likely he, gets going and stays in because he gets going. Kevin Love, probably the best play on FanDuel or very close. Brilliant spot for him. Fairly sure he bludgeoned the piss out of the Cavs, the Bulls, rather, the 2 times they played this year. Again, this is a team I've spoken about the backcourt defense and how good it is relative to the front court defense about 6,000 times. So unsurprisingly, I have very little interest in Colin Sexton at $6,800 on DK. Slightly more in Darius Garland, neither remote priorities for me. Garland, 4,400 on FanDuel, better, but still not someone I would be prioritizing to get in. OKC and Minnesota. I like Towns. Towns is priced just great on FanDuel. Why don't you take a second and look up Drummond and Towns ownership for me so we can handle that. But basically, whoever's lower owned, I would prefer playing at this point. Especially with Gallinari out in this matchup. I am a big fan of Chris Paul, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and Dennis Schroeder. Which one I prefer most is going to be a function of price. On DraftKings, that is Chris Paul by not a lot over Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Dennis Schroeder coming in a pretty significant third there. On FanDuel,
Drummond 32, Towns 27.
Right. So good luck. Correlate. Maybe it's like that's right about where it should be. So yeah. I will not hedge the 0.01s and waste the time doing that. Don't play Luguentz Dort, but say his name every chance you get for it makes your life happy. Do we have Steven Adams news?
We do not yet.
Okay, if Steven Adams is in, he's going to be an elite GPP play, where Karl Anthony Towns has consistently been good of him of late. Steven Adams has dropped several very good games against Karl Anthony Towns, who is an execrable, egregiously terrible defender. I'm running out of synonyms, but I'm going to be a big fan of Steven Adams if he is in and starting. Again, we may not get that news in time, but as a pivot, I would definitely like to get some Steven Adams, but obviously you need in and starting. Obviously risky on FanDuel, though. The number there is 5,700. It's going to be 3% owned on FanDuel, so it's just certainly a thing you can do. Yeah, like all the guards here, if you recall Shai Gilgeous-Alexander's 2010 game, that was against the Timberwolves. You're not going to see that again. This is also the third time these two teams have played. That game, basically no one was good except for Shai because he did everything and went the hell off. Other game, basically everyone was pretty good. Schroeder got his money. Chris Paul paid off his price. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander was just fine. FanDuel, the ranking for me is actually Paul, Schroeder, Alexander, but by an incredibly, and again, it's just price-based where Alexander is over 8K there. Paisley is good. I can see times that in this matchup, they go small. 3,100 on DK is obviously appealing. Other than him, the only other person I would touch on the bench would be Hamidou Diallo. Moving on to the final game. This is a pretty bad fantasy game, I should point out. There's obviously some players we're very interested in here, but these are two very, very good defensive teams, and they haven't played yet this year. This game breaking down into a slog would not shock me. So I would temper expectations dealing with injuries and all the extra usage and all that with the fact that it could get a little bit ugly, though we're putting out more Furkan Korkmaz, so there's a chance that everyone goes home happy. Rondo I like a lot in GPPs, even in 20 minutes. It can get some real damage done, no problem there. Non-late swap sites, difficult for me to advocate for 5,800 Dwight Howard on FanDuel, where I think he plays 20 minutes if you have both JaVale and Anthony Davis in. So some concern
JaVale's
there.
out, by the way.
Oh, that's right. JaVale is out on the flu thing. Hold on. Let me update this. I even had a provisional for JaVale out, Anthony Davis in, and I didn't even run it, even though I read it on the air. I was too excited talking about Bruce Brown, who everyone's going to have now. Boo. All right, so the guys you want to look at relevance here. LeBron is absolutely what LeBron is. I don't think we need to go down this path. He's very good. He's priced still a little too cheaply, especially on DraftKings. He's going to be heavily owned. He should be heavily owned. I don't have a strong take there. We know Anthony Davis is in. I like Anthony Davis in tournaments on DK at 9,300. I suspect his ownership will be somewhere in the range of 8%. That's just too cheap for 90. That's just too lowly owned for $9,300 Anthony Davis. Dwight Howard's going to start and play a lot of minutes again. So 5,200 on DraftKings. That's particularly brilliant and something you should prioritize. Has done just fine in the past against Al Horford, where he's going to get obviously a lot of attention. That's really good. FanDuel, a little stickier at 5,800. I'll go back and compare him to the other guys. I don't have my run ready for FD prices. Past that, there's really no need to discuss any of the also rans. Not a big fan of Kuzma. You can do it. I would have some in GPPs.
Two steals this month, by the way, for Kuzma.
Yeah, it's very similar to your criticism of, scores only points, which also goes with Colin Sexton. There's a number of guys here who only do that. I like Ben Simmons less than Zach LaVine and less than Kyrie Irving at their respective prices. It's a 4-game slate. Obviously, he can put up 60 fantasy points and be key. I would make sure to have some. I prioritize him lower than those guys. I will check relative to ownership in a moment. I am not really terribly interested in Furkan Korkmaz at 4,400 and 4,500 on either site in this match.
Korkmaz and Thibault likely to start.
I presumed that was the case, and they'll shift.
Who do you think's the other big is? That was a premium Slack question.
I think Kyle O'Quinn will back up. I think they need his size and toughness on the interior here. I ranked Mike Scott. You could get some Mike Scott time. I do think you get a dozen minutes there. I think you get a relevant amount of time of Kyle O'Quinn, and I ranked him because I believe he plays. I would not play James Ennis. I would have some shares of minimum price or basically minimum price Kyle O'Quinn. Because, again, you just need some fouls on Horford. And I think he is next man up in this situation, dealing with the size of Howard and Brow and so on. I wouldn't Jared Dudley, even though I do think, especially in this matchup, he will play 15 minutes of somewhat center. So I like Horford a lot. Horford would be my favorite 76er barely on DraftKings. Harris is my favorite 76er barely on FanDuel. Shifting down to the 4, which is what I expected, helps his rebounding upside. The positionality helps him more there. So FanDuel, Harris, my first priority. DraftKings, Horford, my first priority. Simmons, absolutely fine to play, but again, for me, behind a couple other elite guard options. Let's punt it to questions or something. See, I went through like 2.5 games myself in 6 minutes. You just got to let the dog off the leash.
All right, let's see. Wow, Jared Dudley's still in the league. Eddie has an adverse reaction to Thad Young and Bruce Brown's ownership.
Was someone like taking notes?
I don't know. Is Dudley a lock tonight? Is Dudley in play? Is AD on a minutes limit? Well, yeah, let's talk about AD for a second.
Let's talk about AD a little bit more. Yeah. I'm gonna see, the problem with hosting the show is I can't just stare at news feeds the whole time, which is what I would like to do and be most useful, but then I have to talk. So,
I'd like to stare at something else, but hey, news feeds. Okay, that's what we're calling it now. Okay, I'm off topic. Let's go back.
Okay, we'll go. Are you suggesting I have porn up? I don't understand what we're talking about. Okay, so I like Towns and Drummond more on FanDuel with the knowledge that a significant segment of the field is going to shift to Dwight Howard. I like Dwight Howard a lot. I like Dwight Howard and one of those dudes on DK in your center spots, and the price is a little better there. But just as an inclination, I think you get 60 out of Towns or Drummond tonight, and I think you get 35 out of Howard, which feels pretty good, but I think you can make it up other places. I don't mind, making that move. So I'm kind of interested in sticking with that. I have no objection with any amount of Dwight Howard you want to play on any side. He's going to project very nicely for me. But that last game was, the minutes were notable to look at. It wasn't as many as some of us thought he might get. It's still going to project just fine for me. I'm going to have him somewhere very close to 30 fantasy points at 5 or whatever. I think I have him a little over, actually. So Let me run that. And I had a rotation ready, but he's going to be well owned. So I have him, if he runs that rotation, at 31.5 now. That feels very good at his price, but I still do like spending up at center quite a bit, and keep that in mind. I don't know. Give me some questions. I'm going to keep looking for news and stuff.
All right. I'm running a crunch, but let me get back over to here. If you had to start a lineup with one guy, who would it be? Drummond, Towns, fill in the blank.
On DraftKings, it would be Andre Drummond, hoping, especially that now I think he'll be under-owned relative to what he should be, with a lot of people jumping up and down on Howard's junk. On FanDuel, I'll go with Zach LaVine.
Okay. That is a name we haven't spent a lot of time on. How do you feel about LeBron James representative to the rest of the studs now that Anthony Davis is going to be playing?
It doesn't change it a ton for me. I still think I end up having him ranked very similarly to both of those stud centers. It ends up being, it's a nuance of like $400 on either site. So I do not have a large degree of separation at points per dollar between Irving and LaVine and Drummond and Towns and LeBron. They're all actually in a fairly narrow band. So I'd be more interested in game correlation and working against ownership than trying to, massage a projection a half a point to one side or the other.
Is Andrew Wiggins the forgotten man right now?
No, I don't like him terribly in this matchup. Again, we've seen this a couple times this year. And again, there's been a number of times, like, he is the forgotten man, but I think he is correctly forgotten in this instance. There's been a goodly number of times this year where I've been like, no one's going on Wiggins, but you do have Towns back, which is a very real thing. We've seen more assists out of him recently. We've seen, a little bit more playmaking. There's obviously some lineup influx there with Okogie taking more of Culver's time and all of that junk going on. But I do dislike the matchup for him. And 7K is nice. It's not quite low enough where I'm like, oh, got to get me some of that. So I think he'll be low owned, but I don't horribly object to that designation.
How much under do you want to be on Thaddeus Young, considering he is basically 60 on DK and 50
That's a choice of personal preference. I would probably at this point, if I was, first of all, I very rarely played more than a couple lineups when I was legally allowed to play. So in my mind's eye, I would see that number and I would probably play 0. If he's going to be 60% owned, it is not that weird for me to see him not getting there. And there's plenty of other pivots, plenty of other cheap players, plenty of other power forwards. FanDuel, you have Kevin Love at a brilliant price and someone else to fill in there. So I probably just go, you know what? I'm going to hope Thad Young gets 16 fantasy points and I just gained 15, expected fantasy point value on 60% of the field. And I'm only screwed if he, absolutely demolishes me in a matchup that is not particularly brilliant for him at that position, playing out of position against some bigger guys sometime. So, what would I do? I would probably have none. That's not what I would ever advise someone else to do, because most people are a little more risk averse than that. So that's really a personal question. I feel strong that 60% Thad Young is not the profitable way to handle the slate. I would rather play 100 than 60. If you told me the slate's playing 60, I'd be like, all right, screw it. I think he's either going to get there, or I think he's not going to get there. I would take one edge or the other and just try to get a big leap on the field. Being different from ownership is critical to being profitable. If you ape everyone's ownership every day and just like, well, I matched the field, and well, I matched the field, and well, I matched the field, you're never going to win in the long term. You're mathematically making it impossible. So I would probably take a stand to the negative here, but I would rather play 100% than 60%. He's a fine play at his price. So it really ends up being just a personal decision and degree of risk tolerance.
All right. The late night hammers looking like a defensive struggle. If you were going to target a few guys, who would it be to be above the field?
Again,
would you say on Kyle O'Quinn? That's kind of the veiled question.
On DraftKings, I would be over the field on, I don't know what Kyle O'Quinn's expected to be on, but I would have
less than 5%.
Okay, I think I would have 8%. I'll pull a number out of my butt there completely. I would be over the field on Anthony Davis. I would be over the field on maybe Rajon Rondo. I'd be around on LeBron. I'd be over apparently on Kyle O'Quinn.
What about Horford? He's coming in at
we
25.
had him pretty high. I would want 25-30 Horford, but I think that's what we were expecting. So yeah. I suspect that'd be about the same. I might end up over on Harris. Him starting down at the 4 is a real benefit that may not be correctly, handled by everyone in the time available to make that call. So.
All right. 3 minutes left. I'm hitting crunch right now.
Crunch it, baby.
Yeah. What do you got for anything that was overlooked by anybody?
Too much to say. I know you're crunching, so that was supposed to be a time for you to crunch and maybe talk about things. But I'm knee deep in some news stuff here, so you gotta. I'm throwing it back. You tried to hand me the hot potato, just like a turnover ball at the end of. I don't know if you've ever seen that fun thing with the hand grenade. No, at the end of halves or something to try to where there's some really dumb scoring or to get a turnover or something, you will have players trying to hand each other the ball as the clock runs out.
Oh,
doesn't matter. Just ignore me. But it's funny when it happens.
All right. Who's your number one play of the day?
I can't answer that question simply.
LeBron, Drummond, or Karl Anthony Towns? You had to do one thing. We got
it again changes
left.
Incredibly from sight, but I don't have. I don't want to make up an answer. I don't have a good answer.
All right. Well, my crunch restarted itself, so now I'm in major panic mode.
You got a minute and some change.
That's okay. This is where I need to have seconds showing on my clock.
Okay.
I don't, but that's okay. We just went inside of a minute here.
I'd rather play Covington than Wiggins, by the way.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Especially with Gallo out. Like I'm not a massive gotta get me some Covington. He's always a very unknown quantity. Not someone I'm super jazzed on making sure I have some exposure to, but if I was going to go second wheeler and wanted a piece of that game and wanted to stack against whatever, I would play Covington at his 56 or 57 before I went to Wiggins.
What is the Detroit game? Is that the second?
You're asking what the schedule is?
Yeah, is that our locked game?
That is our lock game.
Damn it! I'm not going to get enough Bruce Brown.
It is our only lock game.
I'm going to disappoint Eddie, but I may. Yes, I got my lineups in. Very nice. Because there's not much to punt to tonight with just 3 later games. Although that is 75% of the schedule.
Trying to find some news.
All right. Well, we just hit lock, but that's okay. I'm going to download. We're going to do a little daddy likes. By the way, tomorrow we have a Pro Bowl show. That is going to be myself and Nolan Kelly, our editor-in-chief. We're going to probably go live around 11:30. Pro Bowl kicks off at 3 p.m. Eastern. We're going to talk strategy. There's some few rules you may not be aware of. Wider, narrower goalposts. Is there different onside kick rules? Yes, there are. What else is going to be fun? You have to play a tight end on every play. Defenses can't blitz.
Oh, Pro Bowl? Did you get on the Pro Bowl?
Pro Bowl. You cannot. You have to play a tight end on every play. The NFC.
Did they do? Have they done anything? Have they done anything in the last couple of years to make it not crap?
Yes. They have single game DFS contests for it.
Okay, well, yeah, DFS makes it less crap because there was a while like Pro Bowl, you're like, yay, like a pass rush coming to tackle you. Like,
yes, no defenses cannot blitz. Quarterbacks are marginalized. Running backs, I think the highest largest rushing total of the last 3 games, I think, was 32 yards, something in that range. It's
kind of like football.
I believe if we were in France, we would look at it and we would say merde.
Merde. That means le poop.
Le pou. Caca. Or shit. All right. On to the live contest. We have, this is the $15 DK $375,000 contest. 6,400 people paid out downloading the CSV. Who do you think is going to be the most popular play of the night?
That's Andre Drummond. Second is going to be tough, but Andre Drummond will be top still.
You are correct.
He would have been, I liked our projection for him at a bit under half. I think Dwight Howard knocks him down 3 or 4%, so I'll go 44.
Drummond is 46. Who does number 2 work for?
You tell that turd who's boss.
Tom Arnold, underrated genius.
He's very. There's a whole class of actor,
and his mellowed out from the Schwarzenegger movie and beyond. Prior to that, he was an asshole.
yeah. But there's a whole class of actor who is incredibly watchable. They're not very good actors, but you watch him do anything. Like Jeff Goldblum, yeah, I'll just watch Jeff Goldblum read the phone book. Yeah, Tom Arnold, like it's just there's a certain watchable charisma quality. Did you see I got my basketball pictures while I was away there? I got John. I found a garage sale with all these framed basketball pictures for like $1 a piece. So I got a lot of them. I'm just gonna put the appropriate ones in the background today. We have John Sally.
Oh, very nice. The Bad Boys, the original, not Bad Boys.
Oh, I got 3 Bad Boys here.
I went Bad Boys.
I went full Piston style. I went all Pistons. Yeah. I got John Sally, which when you go through life as a man named Sally, you got to get tough. So those John Sally.
Biggest ass in the league.
He's the biggest asset in the league. I agree. Second, Joe Dumars, hell of a shooting guard, nice defender. Made shots when needed to. Did his role next to IT2. As a GM, he could handle a lot of telephones at the same time. I don't know if you've seen one of my favorite pictures of all time, but there's a great picture of Joe Dumars holding many telephones. Trying to look busy. Yeah. And then number 1.
Busy like Derek Jeter with 2 tablets busy? Or
no, not Derek Jeter like leave a basket on the side of the bed in the morning. 99% and change, not good enough. But number 1, someone who tried to do his part for racial equality in this country by making sure that someone who is white and pasty as me could be called a thug. Bill Laimbeer. This man was no stranger to throwing an elbow. He played
originated the phrase throwing bows.
I seriously doubt that's the case, but Bill Laimbeer right here. Excited. It's a goal of my life for a while. He got down and got nasty with a whole lot of people tried to reclaim that term, but went south from there. But yeah, Bill Laimbeer did some real damage. So there you go. I got some Pistons pictures. I don't know where we left the whatever. But
well, we're coming back in with player number 2, but I do want to mention if you have not yet signed up for Osmo, an amazing deal right now. Use the promo code LIV. Hey, wait, in Roman numerals, that's 54. Super Bowl 54. That means you can get 1 month of all access premium content for $54. Use the promo code LIV. All right, who does number 2 work for?
Copyrightosmo.com, MMXX.
You're going to be proud and horrified at the same time.
Oh, God damn it. You clued me in. I didn't think you would get there, so it's Bruce Brown.
It is Bruce Brown. What do you think he's at? It's a 4-gamer, so everybody's in.
Yeah, we had bumped him to 37, and it's got to be. I'll go right with what the ownership projection said, and I'll stick with 37. I think that's a good number.
35.
Yeah.
Damn it! People are getting smart. This is what happens when you have almost 3,000 loyal viewers turning in on a Saturday evening.
No, it's my fault. I'm sorry. It really is a thing. Now it's not because we still we have 3,000 viewers. I imagine we account for more than 3,000 entries in the biggest DK contest. That's moving the goddamn needle. So it's not as big of a deal as it is in like summer league or playoffs when roughly 40% of the people playing are listening to the show I'm running because no one else is running shows because it's off season. Then it's just like, if I say this guy is a really good under-owned play, he will cease to be a really good under-owned play. I don't know how to handle it. Anyway, I don't think more than 1% or 2 of that changes us. I think our original projection of whatever was maybe a little bit low, and then when they announced him as starting, people went, "Hey, the rest of the value is kind of crap," and so that's how we.
It's a 4-game slate. We didn't move it that much.
So anyhow,
shout out to my guy John Church, who always has the fun Twitter stuff. He's Lincoln Hawk, you may remember, over the top. He says, like Emac and Fast Eddie, the only DFS duo that will discuss fighting with my family, porn, and Tom Arnold on the same show.
That's true. I don't even think that was
the Venn diagram is 2 people, Betty.
Yeah,
2
like
people.
I showed my pajamas and wore some ridiculous sunglasses. It's just this is what passes for weird, wild party nights at our age, right here.
Oh, we are so out of control. As we go into the 8:00 slate here, and we'll hit up the last few guys here. Anything you want to impart to the people playing on the 3-gamer here? Available on FanDuel, Yahoo, Fantasy, or in DK.
I can't think of anything that would immediately I mean, you are all right. So we're losing a massive amount of Pistons ownership because your next guy or second to next guy was going to be Derrick Rose if we kept
But
going.
we're
down that
getting
list.
the Bulls in a prominent position.
Yeah, no, and I don't like to say when I don't know, and since I haven't specifically looked at it, I'd be sort of grasping at straws. So, unlike Thursday, I will be around for questions and stuff. And when we get off air, I'll look at the 3-gamer a bit. And so, if you're certainly a member at awesemo.com, send me a private message with any questions, and I will try to get back and answer them. But top of my head, I'm not comfortable saying anything.
All right. How much did you spend on sushi the other night? Was a question. Happy birthday to your daughter, of course.
We very luckily walked in at 2-for-1 rolls night. So I had a dinner, ran about $20. My wife had a dinner, ran about $20. And my daughter, because it was 2-for-1 on normal rolls night, only rang up $58 in sushi herself.
Ooh, heads up for rolls. She topped both of you.
Heads up for rolls. That was really good. That was really good, Mac. That wasn't even like dad jokey. That was legitimately clever.
I have moments. Few and far between, but I have moments. Who was
heads up for rolls?
3, 4, and 5 here as we wrap up?
Derrick Rose, Kyrie Irving, Guy. I'll go.
Correct.
Is that the order?
Yes, it is. Rose 32, Irving 29, and Guy 22.
Guy's 22. Who the hell's got 22? Oh.
He played 4 years in college. And this morning on the DFS strategy show, Adam thought he was a one and done from Kentucky.
Okay. So now I have to remember where everyone went to college. I think it's Karis LeVert because he played 4 years at
Michigan. It is Karis LeVert.
Okay, fine. That way
we had to look it up because
there's only so many other players that could be. That meant it wasn't Jared Allen, who was the other guy I was going to guess. Okay. So LeVert,
Allen is half his ownership. Is that good or bad on DK for those that have locked?
That's great. He's 12% or something.
Yeah, 11.
That's wonderful. I'm a big fan. I mean, he turned into a lot of Dwight Howard. So that's great. I mean, it's a tough spot. Has not done well against Drummond, but it's still 30-something minutes in what could be a great matchup. So he should be more than 10 on a 4-gamer. How much is Speedy Claxton?
He is 3.3.
Yeah, nice. I like that at that number.
Tim Frazier 0.25.
How much is
Timothy Luau Cabarro?
Yeah, how much is Dinwiddie?
Oh. I got to use the search function. Okay, he is somewhere. Why is he not showing up on the list?
They didn't trade him or something, did they? I can't wait for my trade deadline.
3.9. 3.9. Karis LeVert 3.9. Svi is 3.
Whoa. Karis LeVert's not 3.9. Spencer Dinwiddie's.
Sorry,
you just said Karis LeVert 3.9.
My apologies. LeVert 22.
Okay.
Spencer Dinwiddie 3.9. Garrett
4
Temple
is pretty juicy.
Yeah, Garrett Temple 3.9. Claxton 3.3. Svi is 3. Wilson Chandler 1.8. Markieff Morris 1.6. Thon Maker / McCurr 1.4. By the way, he goes by either last name. If you
I've heard that. Yeah, and it's Anthony Simons. By the way, I'm not dithering anymore. It's goddamn Simons. I went back because I said Simons for years. So no, it's actually pronounced Simmons. So I went, okay, I'll change it to Simmons. Then I found several sources, and then I finally found him saying it. So it's Simons. It's Anthony Simons.
All right. Do you want to have some fun? Do you know which of his teammates actually played for his namesake, Anthony Penny Hardaway? Oh, here we go.
I'm trying to remember where Penny coached.
Which of his current teammates played with his namesake? By the way, his namesake, Anthony Penny Hardaway, actually had him at his camp. Anthony Simons. His parents were fans of Orlando.
I don't think that's it. I will say.
Oh, I got you.
I'll say Nasser Little.
No, maybe I framed the question poorly. Trevor Ariza played with Penny Hardaway.
Oh, I knew Trevor Ariza played with Penny Hardaway. You said played for the first time.
Oh, I'm sorry. I meant
Penny Hardaway had done a little coaching, so I'm like,
no, my apologies. I meant with, but how long? Better yet, Trevor
I would have gotten that
was like year 16 right now.
I would have gotten that in a heartbeat. He's the only guy on the team who was in the league when Penny retired.
Poorly framed.
I feel like an idiot now. Like he's the only guy on the team. Trevor Ariza is, I believe, 35 in his 16th year in the league, give or take. He's the only one who was playing when Penny retired. And when did Penny hang him up? It was early. It was like 05, 06 or something. But
yeah, it was his. I went and looked. I think it was his first or second year that they played.
Yeah.
It was Trevor Ariza's first or second year.
Yeah. I like Ariza as a player. I think he's a. I mean, that was mostly a cost-saving move on their part for Portland. They had to shed the picks, but I like Ariza still a little better than Bazemore on the defensive end of the court. And you have Lillard, McCollum, Melo, and Whiteside out there. I don't really need another guy gunning anyway, so you won't get as good of a game out of him going forward as we just got. That I would give decent odds that's the best game he has this year, like for the rest of the year. Like you may have just seen the Trevor Ariza game. Especially when McCollum gets back, just having the usage is going to be tough. But good game by him last time.
All right, reminder two to go here. If we get 5,000 followers on Osmo NFL on Twitter, we will have our biggest giveaway yet. That 5,000 has to happen before the Super Bowl. We are closing in. We're just a couple hundred away, so check that out. Last question. This is for Pablo. Muscala or Paisley on the late slate?
Do we have Adams news?
We, as far as I know, may not yet.
Okay, well, if Adams is in, easily Paisley. If Adams
Adams will be on a minutes limit Saturday, but he will play.
Okay, so ignore my previous statement about jumping in there and going apeshit. I need to contextualize those comments, so I need to go find the original video or some press comments to say for sure. At that point, for ownership, I would probably play Muscala. So I think now you're going to get something like 24 minutes of Muscala. Again, I really need to go find the original quote and text, and you're going to get a few more minutes out of Paisley. But if the price is no difference for you, you're going to have Paisley 30% on it. You're going to have Muscala at 4. So I would play Moose.
All right. Shout out to apparently the occasional lady does stumble in here. We have Joanna Hernandez.
Oh, it's a lady.
Would have loved to drink beer with you when I was in high school. Her comment is, I love loud music and being out when the street lights come on. There we go.
When did this turn into like a replay of an episode of The Dating Game from 1989?
I don't know, but that's fantastic. Grew up in a small town, 2,500 people. My mom was the mayor. My cousin was the sheriff. So, hey, drinking beer until the streetlights came on? Yeah.
And they were brother and sister.
Cousins.
No, I know. That was my joke.
I know. But there we are. All right. Well, with that, gamers, we're going to get on out of here. You can follow Eddie on Twitter at FastEddieFair. Again, Osmo. Go over there to Osmo NFL on Twitter. Get us to 5,000. We're giving our biggest prize yet for free. Check it out. And I am at EMACDFS. With that, gamers, if you're a subscriber, dip on in to the Slack and get Eddie's takes on the 8 o'clock games.